welcome back to my channel. I am Linda and I'm a healer, a coach, and a facilitator. And in this channel, I give you clarity about emotional intelligence and practical spirituality subjects and how you can use them in your day-to-day to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and joyful life. So this is the last video in our series of the subconscious mind. And I wanted to talk a little bit and put all of the pieces together on why I decided to do this series and why I think the subconscious is so important and why it's such an important part of my practice in my own life. And basically we touched a little bit about that, I think, on the first video when we were talking about the shadow and shadow work. And it really is because I believe that the subconscious holds the key to most of our trauma. I am a firm believer that a large portion of our trauma happens in our childhood. Not all of it, because we all have trauma throughout our lives, but a lot of the trauma that we are revisiting throughout our life originated in our childhood. And basically we get re-traumatized, we get triggered and re-experience the same trauma, but maybe in different flavors or throughout different aspects of our life. Now, again, there are other traumas that are not based or originated in our childhood, but in general, a good portion, if not the vast majority of it, does. So one of the reasons that I think is so important for us to do this work is because this really shows up consistently in our adult life, and nobody escapes this, myself included, right? So we have all of these things that we do, all of these behaviors, all of these motivations that we and things we do in our life, all of these patterns, recurring patterns that are consistently impacting our quality of life, right? They make us feel dissatisfied with our lives. They make us feel in pain, heartbroken, depressed, anxious, etc. And I think it is key to start really breaking apart all of those subconscious wounds in order to be able to heal the pain of today, to really get a deep understanding of where it comes from, so we can start healing and breaking through those blocks and healing so that we can truly create the life that we want to live, right? So we can open up to the possibilities of the world of our life and live that fulfilling, meaningful, joyful life that we all want and that we all deserve as human beings. So that is really the reason why I think the subconscious is so important and such an important piece of any development and healing journey. And it is not something that I hear about a lot, or as much as I would like, I should say. So that's really the reason why I chose to do this series. Now, there's a lot more that you can do with the subconscious, right? Basically, over the series, what we did is I just basically described all of the different terminology, right, and all of the different concepts, and gave you sort of the progression of how the cycle works. And that was just intended to give you a basic understanding of it. Like I said in the videos, if you want to learn more about the subconscious or any other of these topics, you can go to my website. There will be a subscription service that will be launching, I think, sometime in November, where you can get the full video of the subconscious, which is, I think, close to an hour and a half. And then there's going to be some exercises and some other, documentation and content related to that. But there's also going to be information on other topics. But in addition to that, I wanted to give you a couple of tips on how you can start working with your subconscious mind. There's some people that just dive right into shadow work, which is me. I'm one of the people who did that, but I know that's not for everybody, right? This can be a very scary proposition to some people, and a lot of that has to do with our own trauma, right? So there's a couple of things that I would recommend that I think would be helpful to start tapping into the subconscious mind a little bit more slowly. And the first tip that I would do, and this is something that a tip that I give in almost every class and almost every video that I record where I'm giving you tips. And the first one is to start a journal. And I know I constantly repeat this for those of you who have watched me for a while, but I do think is a really, really important piece, because journaling is a way for us not only to express our emotions and our thoughts, but also to discharge the energy associated with them. It doesn't dissipate, or it doesn't discharge all of the energy, but it actually helps minimize it a little bit. It helps mitigate it a little bit. And I think it is also super helpful to have a lot of this stuff recorded, so that then you can go back in the future, you can come back and look at, for example, you spend 1 week recording all of your experiences and all of your emotions and all of your thoughts about a particular experience, and then next week you come back and read everything that happened this week, and that will help you start connecting the dots. You'll start seeing different patterns, and oh, so when this person does this, I react this particular way, and then this reaction that I had this other time, it's not exactly the same, but it's sort of similar, and maybe there's some relationship there, etc. That's really what the purpose of journaling is to express, to discharge, but also to have a record so that you can use it as a guide in the future. Now, for those of you who don't have a journal, I will put an affiliate link to Amazon in the description box with a couple of journals that I think may be helpful for you to use. And they're obviously, most of them are blank pages. There's a couple that are just like a gratitude journal, and there is a couple others, mindfulness journal, etc. I'll put them as well. But the main one is just, you know, a blank journal where you can write all of your emotions, all of your experiences, etc. You don't have to buy it, obviously. It's just a suggestion. I have it, I love it, so that's why I'm sharing it here, and it is an affiliate link. But I also, if you don't want to buy it, you could also use pieces of paper or a notebook. I would suggest you use a notebook, not single pieces of paper, because then you'll have to try and keep them together, and that's going to get messy fast. And I'm a very organized person. I do not do messy well. So anyways, but yeah, you could write it anywhere. You could also, I've recommended in, I think, a couple of my classes, that for those of you who are more verbal like me, you can also use a phone app where you just record, sort of like a dictation app where you can record your voice. The thing with that is that it's not as easy to go back, because then you have to listen to the whole thing. You cannot just search, but you can also use it, and then you can transcribe it later if you wanted to. And then the other tip that I would like to give you is a process called the work. And this is not my work, and this is not my process. It is a process developed by the author Byron Katie. I think maybe some of you may be familiar with her. I've actually mentioned her a couple of times on the channel. She has a book called Loving What Is, I think is the name of the book. Again, I'll put the affiliate link for the book on Amazon in the description box for this video. But she also has a website. I don't remember the full name of the website, but I think it's called thework.com. I may be wrong. You can look it up. You can Google it. But the process is called the work, and it consists of 4 questions that you can use to ask yourself and to sort of start dismantling some of your beliefs. And the first question is that true? So basically, you'll have like a statement or a belief. Let's say my belief, if we're going to use the example that we've been using throughout all of the other videos, my belief that I am not worth love, or that I am not lovable, right? So the way you would use that work, well, the work of the work is, the first question would be, is that true? Meaning, is it true that I am not lovable? And then you take a moment, you think it through, you feel it through to answer the question. Now, what happens is most people answer the question the first time you ask that question with yes. Yes, it's true. Yes, I believe it. Yes, it's true, right? I want to distinguish between I believe it and it's true, because those are 2 different things. But yeah, most people answer the first one with yes, right? Some people answer with no after they give it some thought, but most people answer with yes. So the second question is that really true? And this is where we really go a little bit deeper to really question ourselves and see if that belief is in fact true. And one tip that I would recommend here is you could close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and put your hands on your heart. And then ask again, is that really true? And the reason why I recommend that is because the way our brain works, anything we touch, right, anything that we put our hands to, tactile, where we have a tactile experience, our attention is drawn there. So when you put your hands to your heart, your attention is drawn to your heart, to your emotions, to your soul. And that oftentimes can help us answer with a little bit more truth, right? Answer from the heart rather than from the mind. So the third question is, what happens when I believe that? Or when I believe that thought, or when I believe that belief, right? So what happens when I believe that I am not lovable? Well, again, we want to go a little bit deeper, but just for the sake of the video, I'm just going to give you some ideas off the top of my head. So for example, for me, it could be that what happens is that I am more isolated, because since I assume that I truly believe that I'm not lovable, I don't make an effort to connect to other people. I'm not as kind as I could be. I'm not as social or sociable, I guess, as I could be, right? So I don't make an effort to connect with other people. So what happens is that I continue to isolate myself, or feel more isolated or more alone than I would have to be. And then the last question is, who would I be without that thought? And that question really starts getting even deeper into the deeper layers, right? Because if I didn't believe that, if I didn't have that thought, who would I be? How would I behave in the world? How would I engage in the world? And probably I would be more open, right? More open-hearted, probably be more willing to connect with people, to talk to people, I don't know. Probably feel happier altogether, right? Because I'd have more connections, more authentic and deep connections, etc. So I'm going through this pretty fast because I don't want to make this video too long, and she details this process pretty well on her website. So there's no, I had actually considered doing a video just on this, but it's really hard for me to do this work while on camera, because especially if I'm doing it just for myself, because I have to, like, you know, I'm trying to be in my feelings and go deeper, not just the conscious thought, but go a little bit deeper. And it's hard to do that with the lighting and the camera and making sure that I'm not, you know, I'm not out of shot and all of that stuff. So I don't think that's going to work out. And right now we're still in quarantine, so it's not really feasible for me to do it with someone else. So in the future, once the quarantine is over, hopefully maybe I can work with a client, and I won't necessarily show them on camera, but I can use them to do some of this work on camera, you know, for in video, so that you guys can see how this different processes and modalities that I use actually work. But in any case, you could go to the website. Again, you're going to have to Google it. I think it's called thework.com, but please don't quote me on that. And those are the two tips that I wanted to share with you of how you can start tapping into the subconscious. They're not very complicated, and they don't really go deep into the subconscious mind, but it is a first step to starting to access your subconscious and starting to get into the deeper layers of your subconscious mind, so you can start sort of like, you know, looking around and, you know, start finding patterns and start getting a little bit deeper into your wounding and your beliefs, etc. So I hope this series has been helpful to you. And as always, thank you so very much for your attention, and until next time, namaste.